The Pardes Beit Midrash here in Yerushalayim. It's 4:30 here as the sun is setting over the hills of Jerusalem that we can see from our Beit Midrash. It's 2:30 in the afternoon in London. It's 9:30 in the morning in New York and 6:30 in the morning in Los Angeles. We welcome everybody both here as well as virtually to this discussion in connection with the Global Day of Jewish Learning about a Talmudic passage called For Who Entered the Pardes. We'll start with Dr. Meesh Hammer-Kossoy, instructor of Talmud at Pardes.
For entered the Pardes, Ben Azai, Ben Zoma Acher, and Rabbi Akiva. One peeped and died, one peeped and was stricken, one peeped and hacked down the roots, and one went up in peace and went down in peace. If this is not a great brochure for the fine institute of Machon Pardes, I don't know what would be. I think it's a shame that we've waited until the end of the month, until already half of our semester is over, to let you in on the proof that you see in this text that here Pardes is not a cookie-cutter institution. Four go into the Pardes, each one comes out according to his own way. Ben Azai peeped and died, dying in ecstatic union with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lo yirani adam v'chai. Nobody can see God and die without dying. He succeeds in actually seeing God and dies in ecstatic union with God. An opportunity to see God, Machon Pardes. I can imagine that it would be attractive to many students. I'm not sure what Joel would think about interest-free loans to such people, or how many parents would be willing to support their children on that decision, but it's an idea. One peeped and was stricken, one peeped and hacked down the roots. I see those two as related to each other. The one that's peeped and stricken, being stricken emotionally or mentally, I think, is parallel to being stricken in terms of action. Here you see Elisha ben Abuya, who cuts the shoots, is really from a Pardes perspective. You can come to Pardes and still be a success if you go out and ride on a horse on Shabbos, study heresy. We named our institution after him. Nifka, the flip side of that, going out and living on another plane of existence. I don't think it has to mean that you're mentally disturbed, but rather that you're no longer living in this world, but rather you're living in the world in a different emotional plane than everyone else. And of course, Rabbi Akiva, nichnas b'shalom v'yatza b'shalom, came in and went out in peace. Certainly a success story. 25%. I really think it's a very funny thing to name our institution after Arba Nichnasu the Pardes. Four go in, one comes out. And so I sort of wonder what are we doing? And then when you add to that, what is the Pardes? It's very difficult to understand, and in fact, Tzvi says I don't have to worry because we don't know what the Pardes really is. But we do know that it has something to do with esoteric knowledge. Its connection in the Mishnah is to mysticism, sort of wedged in between Maaseh Merkava and Maaseh Bereshit, things that should be not learned under any circumstances and things that should be learned under very limited circumstances. So to me, it seemed like a sort of a strange name for our institution. We don't spend, I know we've got James here now, but we don't spend that much of our time studying the esoteric here. Most of our time is dedicated to studying Torah in its simple level. And so when I was asked to sort of think about this passage, I found myself sort of puzzled. What is it that we're trying to, why would we name our institution the Pardes? I mean, I recognize that there's, well, other people will talk about Pardes as an acronym for Pshat, Remez, Drash, Sod, 4 different levels of ability to learn Torah. But to me, this, I think that's a much later level understanding of the word, and in its original context in Torah, Pardes seems to me to not be an appropriate name, and I tried to be clear, I was wearing diapers when they named this institution. So I wasn't part of the decision in any way, and I have no idea what original intent is. Maybe Meir will want to talk about it if he knows. But I was trying to think about what is it that we should take away about this idea of Pardes? Like, why should we be thinking about it now? And for that, I wanted to look at the Rambam. The Rambam, which is at the top of your sheet here. Can I have the Rambam here, the big book? So that I can hold it. The Rambam, his magnum opus, opens with Hilchot Yesodei HaTorah, his Mishnah Torah, and there he spends the first 4 chapters explaining what he thinks the basis of Torah is, right? The foundations to Torah are these mitzvot. Lida sheyesh sham Eloha, shelo yaleh b'machshava sheyesh sham Eloha acher zulati Hashem, liachdo, lahavo, ulira mimenu. To know that there is God, to not have even a passing thought that there's someone besides for God, to unify God's name, to love God, and to fear God. And after 4 chapters of talking about those commandments, he talks about the Pardes, and this is where he comes in, and that's where I've brought you here. In Yenei Arba Prakim Elu Shebachamesh Mitzvot Elu, the matter of these 4 chapters that are these 5 mitzvot that I just said, to essentially to believe in God, to love God, to fear God, and to unify God's name in the world. That's what Elu Hem Shechachamim Rishonim Karino Tam Pardes. Those are the things that the early sages called Pardes. And then he references our story. And then he goes on to say, "Va'ani omer she'ein ra'ui l'tayel b'pardes, ela mi shenitmalei kreso lechem ubasar, v'lechem ubasar zehu leida bi'or ha'asur v'hamutar uchayotze behen mishar ha'mitzvot." And he says, you should be careful before you go wandering in the Pardes. Rather, the only people who should go into the Pardes are the people whose stomach is filled with bread and meat. Bread and meat is basically knowing Torah, knowing what you have to know, that what's prohibited, what's forbidden, what's permitted and what's prohibited, and all of the details with respect to the mitzvot. And even these things, he goes on to say, Afal pisha dvarim elu dvar katan karu otam chachamim, that God called them small things. Shaharei amru chachamim dvar gadol maaseh merkava dvar katan havayada abai v'rava, right? Because they said that something great, a great thing to know is to know, to be able to understand the chariot, and a small thing it is to be able to read the Talmud, to read the discourse between Abai and Rava. Even so, you ought to learn those things first. Because they are the things that settle a person's brain in the first place. And they're also the great things that God gave us in order to help this world, to have a great life in this world and in the world to come. So what interests me about this halacha here, and I think that we maybe should be taking away and integrating into our understanding of the Pardes and what we're doing here, is that Torah is designed to get us to the Pardes. Getting us, the Torah is not, the Torah is, and he goes on to say, right, the Torah is the wonderful things that God gave us, and it's an expression of God's affluence in the world, and his influence in the world and the wonderful things that he's giving us, but it's also a way for us to get to what is the ultimate purpose in the world from his mind. The ultimate purpose in his mind is to know that there is a God and to make God's name true in the world. And the way to get to that, our ultimate purpose in the world of knowing and loving and fearing God, is only through Torah. So that the Torah is is an end in itself, absolutely, but it's also a means to an end. And I think that one thing that Pardes, that's powerful about Pardes, is that we're learning Torah with the hope that it's going to influence us very much. And then he ends with this sentence that we were just disagreeing. And it's possible that everyone can know these things. Gadol v'katan, ish v'isha, ba'al lev rachev u'ba'al lev katzer. It's possible for everybody to know these things, whether you're big or small, man or woman. And it's interesting that it seems as though we might disagree. It's that this sentence is has gone back to talk about the Pardes. That unlike the Talmud that thinks that the Pardes is something that Arba Nichnasu and they're in big trouble when they get there and not everyone should go in. For the Rambam, to go to the Pardes is to know God and to fear God and to love God and to unify God's name in the world. And that's something that's incumbent on all of us. And the Rambam makes explicit in his Sefer Mitzvot that women are just are every bit as obligated in those things which he defines as the Pardes as men are. And because men and women are equally obligated in those 5 mitzvot, then they are obligated. They have no choice but to go into the Pardes. And even though the Pardes is a dangerous place, it's something that is actually available to men and women and people of all kinds in equal measure. And I think that's another thing that we can take with us about this institution of Pardes, is this idea that Pardes is something that's available to everybody, it's the ultimate goal of Torah. It's about our relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's something that's available to absolutely everybody. So thank you.